Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Force here with some more Friday Night Magic. Today we are playing Dodge and Burn. This is a pretty cool control counter deck with some mass damage and counter spells and all sorts of fun fetching and draw a card and all crazy stuff like that. This opening hand is okay. It isn't phenomenal though, so I'm actually gonna draw a new hand. This is all right. We got some mass damage there in the Starstorm and direct damage and the Searing Spear. So this is a pretty strong deck, and it's also very, very fun to play. The idea is we've got direct burn, we've got this mass burn. There's a few ways to finish off your opponent, but it's sort of just a war of attrition is essentially how the deck plays out. And this is actually interesting. Oh boy. Almost considering Searing Spear during my turn. I know it's an instant, but he could have a counter spell, which would stop me from touching his Phantasmal Bear. You know what, actually, no, we're gonna let that go through. We're gonna let that go through for now. I wanna see what he does this turn before I make any decisions with my spear, so. Okay, so we're gonna try this. We'll see if he has a counter spell. We're gonna attempt to Searing Spear. When it gets targeted, it's not even the damage it goes through. When it gets targeted, he has to sacrifice it. That's how these Phantasm's illusions work, is that they're really, really strong for their mana cost, but if you play an opponent who can target them, then they get hurt a little bit. All right, he's gonna play the Gossamer Phantom, which has got flying. Whenever it's targeted, you have to sacrifice it. We've got mass damage to all creatures in the Starstorm, so that's something we might end up throwing down. Not gonna do it yet, though. It's a little premature. I'm gonna wait till he's got a little more creatures in play. I don't mind just taking the 2 damage. Obviously, I did that to the Phantasmal Bear, but I wanna wait till he commits a little bit more. Now, if he's smart, he isn't gonna commit too hard. He's going to take it very slow, take it easy. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. We'll see what I decide to do. If he doesn't do anything else during his main phase, I might just kill that. I'm just gonna do it. So we're trying to hold off this stuff as long as possible. We expect him to be continuously playing creatures, and obviously I took that damage there. I was hoping that during his second, oh my lord, talk about mana flood. I was hoping during his second mana phase that he would have played something else, but if he's playing smart, he will hold on to his hand as much as possible and not overextend. He'll just play 1 or 2 creatures at a time and try to keep hitting me with those said creatures. Does he have anything for his second main phase? No, he does not. That is very interesting. Or he's at least deciding not to play anything during his second main phase. I'm gonna compulsive research on myself. We'll see if he lets this go through. There's a counter spell, okay. Well, that's fine, not the end of the world. At least he's blowing his counter spells on card draw for me instead of my removal, you know? It's fine with me because this deck has got plenty of card draw, so we'll have more to come. Had to play it during my main phase because it is a sorcery. Not a big fan of, ooh, here we go, beautiful. So now we're gonna be able to Starstorm for 2 and clear his board. We can't do it right now, but we can do it during the next main phase. And we will do it right now. Instead of waiting for him to untap, because when he untaps, he then has the opportunity to counterspell it, so we don't want to do it then. We want to do it when we're sure. And I'm surprised he actually played both of those, to be honest with you. I would have assumed that he would have only played a single one of them. Might be a turn for Future Sight. We'll see what else we draw into. We drew into Starstorm. Let's Future Sight right now. We'll do it before we play a land, so that with the Future Sight, this allows me to play with the top card of my library field, and I can play it as if it were in my hand. So, had I played the land in my hand, I wouldn't have been able to play this, because I would have already had my land for the turn. So we're gonna play that, and now we've got access to a Pondify if we so desire to play it, although we probably won't be playing it against this guy, so we'll be doing direct damage and stuff for that. But yes, access to the top of your library. Now the opponent does get to see it, so that's an advantage for them because they know what you have coming up. But it basically consistently gives you that extra card in your hand, and later in the game, when you've got tons of mana, you can just keep fishing stuff from the top of your library, and it is rather awesome. I think I'm actually gonna throw this down at him, just to stop the attack for the turn. Gives him a 3/3, but again, we can deal with that with the Starstorm. And now we've got access to the top of our library, and we can consistently keep pulling from it. So we're gonna play the land. Let's see what we have access to. We have access to an opportunity. So if we try to play that for 6, then we can't Starstorm. And I'd like to be able to Starstorm. Also, keep in mind, opportunity isn't instant, so I can play that during his turn. So we're not gonna make any moves right now. I might just take this damage and try to opportunity. Okay. Try to use one of his other counter spells. If he has one. Alright, so we're gonna attempt to opportunity ourselves. It'll probably get countered. There's a cancel. The deck doesn't have a ton of counter spells though, so we're gonna be running through his counter spells in one way, in one fashion or another. So defender enters the battlefield. I got to return an instant or sorcery from my graveyard to my hand. We could pull back our counter. Where's our... What am I talking about? Do I know what I'm talking about? I thought we had a counter in our graveyard. I guess not. Or we could compulsive research. Let me actually compulsive research right now. Gonna draw 3 and then discard 2 unless we discard a land. We will discard a land because we have plenty. And now I've got access to a bunch more stuff. The Whelp here that we can play as a counterspell. We also have the damage and all that stuff. We could play the Wall, which would just be a blocker for his creature. Why don't we play the Wall? We're gonna play the Wall. We get to fetch an instant or sorcery from our graveyard, bring it into our hand. And we could go with this. We could go with we could grab another Starstorm. So I grabbed the Starstorm actually. Yeah, we're gonna be sitting on plenty of mass damage for our opponent's creatures. So now we've got 2 Starstorms and an Earthquake in hand. Now Earthquake, the only difference is it's non-flying creatures. It also hits players as well. X damage to each creature without flying on each player. This is X damage to each creature. It's two red and an X as opposed to 1 red and an X. This one also has cycling, as you saw. We've got the blocker now for his 3/3. So he attacks, we're gonna declare it a block. Assuming he might have bounce. It's an Avenize, turning my creature into an 0/1. So that means he gets to kill the wall. That's fine though. Remember, we have quite a bit of removal for his creatures. Now we still don't have our victory condition. So that's something we're gonna wanna work on. And basically the idea with this deck is our victory condition is damage to his face. So I can do this for 3. If he tries to counter, we can Whelk. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this for 3. That's fine. Okay, he doesn't try to counter, so it goes through. So that's fine. We still have the Whelk, which works as a counter spell, and I get counters on him based on whatever I counter. Alright, so it comes into play, it counters a spell, and it gets +1/+1 counters based on the casting cost of the spell that I countered. That makes sense to you? Okay. Alright, do we want to draw and take damage? How many deck cards do we have? We're at 12. Yeah, we're gonna actually do it. We're gonna draw 2 cards. We'll take 2 damage in the process. Just trying to get some of our direct damage spells so we can hit him in the face hard. So we've got this, and we can do it for 6, 10. We can do it for 10. We can hit him for 10 right now with a Banefire. And what's the rush, though? There's really no rush. This deck is all about sort of just drawing it out, so I will compulsive research myself. Get a few more cards in hand. discard this. And then we just pass the turn on over. Sounds good. I'm really just hoping he tries to play something big, and then we Draining Welk it, and it's awesome. But so far, he's just doing nothing. I'm gonna try to throw this guy in play. He is going to try to counter. And we are going to counter that. Let's just bounce it back to his hand. He obviously, this means he can play it again in the future, but he can't play it right now, so. So this comes into play. This gives me a random instant or sorcery from my graveyard to my hand during my upkeep. Also, when I play an instant or sorcery, it gets +4/+0. We are way over right now, though. Which is not good. Means we're gonna have to discard 2 cards. Now I could play something. The problem is though, I sort of want to save my mana for my remand. So we're gonna actually end up discarding 2 cards. We're gonna toss instant or sorceries because that's what will be best. Let's get rid of the Sulphurous Blast as well. Because we get those back with our good old Devil. Alright, so he's gonna try to play this. We can hit to counter it, and then he would counter the counter. So why don't we just let him go through? Okay, before the end of his turn, if we try to do this, he counters it, he gets a 3/3 in play, and then we can deal with that. So we're gonna try to Searing Spear his creature, right? Okay, he is gonna counter it with a Welk, and now we can kill the, oh, it's a 4/4? Oh, because of that. Ah, I see. Well, don't worry, we still have, I'm pretty sure we still have some moves here. So we're gonna do this for 3 across the board. Okay. 3 damage to all creatures. Bam. Kills that. He loses his pump up, and then he dies, and now we've got an 8/1 in play. Now, if we play any more instant or sorceries, he gets pumped up even further. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna Banefire our opponent directly. We're gonna do it for 5. Okay. So he takes 5 damage from that. This guy gets pumped up again, bringing him up to 12 damage. And then we move into the combat phase. Well, it was a crazy game, but I love it because this is a control deck and that was some control. All right, let's move on to game 2. And our second game is against Altor. That's a pretty cool name. That was awesome. That first game was really cool. Not because it was the best game of Magic in the world or anything crazy like that. Oh, this actually, it might be worth keeping this hand just because we'll draw a new one. It was great because it was a great display of this deck, I think. That's sort of why I'm pretty thrilled with that first game. It's just the late game, the delayed game, and the control is what this deck is all about. And that's what we got to see in that last match. Okay, so we're gonna be able to Searing Spear come turn 2. Hopefully, though, we draw into another blue so that we can cancel around turn 3. Although we do have the Thought Bind. Double blue so far. All right. I don't think I've. It's a good card. It is. It's not bad. It's not bad. You know, it's funny. You look at that and you like liken it to Hearthstone. It's a 2 lands for a 1/1. Dies, you draw a card. Like, oh, it's sort of familiar. All right, we're not gonna be throwing anything down right now. Unfortunately, because he's running blue, it means we don't have to worry about counter spells for the things that we might be doing. So this will be an interesting matchup. You know, sort of play around the potential of him countering. What are all these floaty things going on here? There's just things floating across my screen. All right, throw out another island for the cancel. We also have the Electrolyze that we could drop down. Might do that during his attack phase. We'll have to we'll have to see what he ends up playing next turn, if anything. If he tries to play anything too daunting, I will cancel. If he doesn't go for anything at all, I'm going to try to Electrolyze during his combat phase just to prevent the damage and maybe get him to throw a spell at me. All right, so we're going to try to do this. Let's see if it goes through. It does go through, so he chooses not to counter. Okay. There we go. He gets to draw the card from his little minion dying. And good lord, we're gonna have a full hand very soon, so we better start. We might just have to throw some spells at his face, basically. I might have to just throw a Searing Spear at his face. Ideally, I'd like to throw it on a creature that he drops into play, though. Because again, the idea with this deck is we're holding off for the late game. That's how this MTG deck runs. We're not looking to run super early wins or anything. Enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card. Well, I'm gonna have to discard something anyways if it comes into play, so I might as well also not have it come into play. So we're gonna counter that with our Thought Bind, which is a counter something with more or less. Reveals top cards from the heck. Okay, so he's got a Last Gasp and 2 Swamps. Let's see, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. Put all cards revealed that way into, then put all, wait, what? Are you serious? Jesus. And he discards the Last Gasp? Oh, because he realizes I'm not running creature heavy. Well, I guess that's not that bad of a play. Where are all my lands? There's 26 lands in this deck, and I'm not getting any of them. I am getting 3 Searing Spears, however. So that's nice, I suppose. So this deck is not creature heavy, but it's got some pretty potent creatures for the late game. He's gonna Chittering Rats. We are just gonna counter that, because otherwise he would, yeah, set me back a turn, basically. Throws down a Guild Mage, which we can get rid of with a spear. We need lands, though. There's a land. We're gonna spear it right now before he can potentially counter the spear. Throw a spear at that. Still leaves us room for another spear or for a cancel for his turn. So if you're wondering, well, Force, see, like, stuff's happening, but you're not really doing anything to win the game. Well, as you saw in the last match, we're not trying to win the game anytime early. Again, that's not how this works. You're gonna attempt to Archaeomancer, which will let him fetch from his graveyard. We are gonna counter that. Oh man, all the counters. It's rage-inducing. I can only imagine my poor opponent right now cannot be happy. We can get this back to fetch back another counterspell. But then that means, well, we wouldn't be able to counter anything anyway, so all we'd really be able to do is spear or something. So why don't we go with a wall, and we're gonna fetch back our cancel. So it's an 0/4 wall, comes into play, we get to pull an instant or a sorcery from our graveyard to our hand. Plus it's an 0/4 wall. Now, we are tapped out though, so that means we cannot cancel anything he tries to play this turn. That means we'll have to rely on damage for it. We've got a double Searing Spear, so that would take something that has 6 health. All right. Whenever a blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player draw a card. Black creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player discard a card. That is a big problem. That is a big, big problem, because he's gonna be throwing discards at my face. So that's why we're happy we have the counter spells, but this thing, him getting that in play is pretty big. But it's not like if we hadn't done the wall, we didn't have a counter spell anyway, so we wouldn't have been able to stop that from happening. We had nothing to stop that from happening, so. And we're just gonna sit on our cancel now. We don't need to throw anything down. We're not close to a full hand, so we don't need to waste our spears on his face at this point either. He's gonna Chittering Rats, which would force me to discard, plus he would also do the bounce. So I am gonna counter that. I bet he's got something else to throw at me, but nothing really. Wow, all right. And here is the Grand Supreme, the Charm Breaker Devils. During my upkeep, I get a random instant or sorcery from my graveyard into my hand. So not only does it let me fetch instants and sorceries like the counter spells, but also whenever I play an instant or sorcery, it gets +4/+0. Now the problem is, can he kill us? Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put that many 1/1 counters, that's fine. He's gonna force me to discard a card now with that. So, we are gonna get rid of X damage each creature, 2 damage each creature can't be countered. Yeah, let's go get rid of this one. This thing is dead, and we can hit him for a lot, is basically what's gonna happen this upcoming turn here. Because we need to kill that, otherwise this guy's not getting through anywhere. Untap, upkeep. upkeep, we get a random instant sorcery back into our hand. Ended up pulling back cancel. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Searing Spear his 6/5 for 3. Then, the remaining 2, we are going to use this. Wait a second, never mind. I was thinking that was Electrolyze. That is not Electrolyze. For the remaining 3, we will Searing Spear. If that was Electrolyze, this would have been even more of a hilarious turn. It's still gonna be a pretty funny turn though. His creature is gone. And now we hit him for 12. The Charmbreaker Devils doing work, huh? Doing work in this episode of FNM. So now he's down to 7. We still have the cancel. Still have a Cerebral Vortex, which I thought was an Electrolyzed for some crazy reason. And we can cycle our Starstorm, but we don't want to do that. He's gonna attempt to play Guildmage, which would force me to discard a card, plus he would draw a card. He's also gonna attempt to last... What are you doing? What the hell just happened? The hell? Alright, I'm gonna discard the Vortex. That was weird, but okay. He's gonna Thought Scour me. Top 2 cards in my library into my graveyard, plus he gets to draw a card. And he gets to draw a card off of that card draw. He's going to attempt to target player discards a card. We are going to cancel that. That would have been very big. We cancel that. This is perfect now. So long as he lives, this is perfect. Because we can Starstorm to X damage to each creature. But there's the Electrolyze. We're gonna Electrolyze instead, because I'm pretty sure, I don't remember. The Electrolyze was what I thought, like I mistakenly thought that card was before, which, as we found out, it was clearly not. And he leaves the game because we just have the victory condition right now. And we hit him for 8. For the win, wow, very, I don't know, pretty cool games. I ended up winning both of them. That's pretty exciting. He didn't do this, yeah, it's -3/-3, it's not a big deal. Because he still gets hit for 8. And, whoa! Oh, the minus. Okay, well, let's do 2 damage to each creature and each player then. Which will kill my creature, but it will also kill my opponent. There you go, there you go. Force wins. Well, the Charmbreaker Devils prove to be worth their weight in gold. They're literally the VIPs of those 2 games. Let's take a look at the dodge and burn deck list that we have. We got 1 Pognify for removal of threatening opponent's creatures. It's also nice because it's an instant, so it works with those devils, plus with all the instant sorcery fetch back. We got the Earthquake for X damage to each creature without flying and each player. Bane Fire, which is X damage to a creature or player. If it's 5 or more, can't be countered by spells or abilities, and it can't be prevented. So that's pretty awesome. This is a good finisher. It's a good finisher, but it's only 1 card. Well, there's so much draw in this deck that there haven't been many games where I haven't had Bane Fire. We've got the Remand for Counterspell. The card bounces back to their hand, but we get to draw a card as well. It's actually pretty decent, especially for a multicolor deck since it's 1 blue and a colorless. Starstorm for X damage to each creature, plus we can cycle. There's 2 of those. Volcanic Geyser for X damage to a creature or player. Searing Spear, 3 damage to a creature or player. Cerebral Vortex, target player draws 2 cards and takes damage equal to the number of cards that they drew that turn. Electrolyze for 2 damage divided how you choose among creatures and players, plus draw a card. There is some Counterspell with Cancel, Counterspell with Thoughtbind, Volcanic Fallout for 2 damage across the board, can't be countered. Compulsive, this is really good against the blue Phantasm deck. Compulsive Research for card draw. We've got the Sulphurous Blast for 2 damage or 3 damage across the board if you play it during your turn. Awesome Wall, not only is it an 0/4, You know, an 04 for 5, meh, but it's the fetching of an instant or sorcery, which makes it work very well in this deck. Future Sight to reveal the top card of your library and play it as if it were in your hand. The Draining Well, a nice late game counterspell that can get really big if you hit a heavy target with that counter. Charmbreaker Devils, again, the VIP of those last 2 games. And then lastly, we've got 2 opportunities, an instant for card draw for 6, late game powerhouse. This deck is late game. Just delay and move into late game and you win. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching this episode of Friday Night Magic. Tune in next Friday for another episode. And as always, keep watching and keep owning.